What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Week 12. It's Battle in the Trenches, presented by Climb the Pocket. Once again, my name is Steve. I'm with my co-host Ryan. I find him on Twitter at BootlegFantasy. Find me at Steve_CTP. Make sure to go check out the website, climbthepocket.com, for a bunch of good articles to help you win your fantasy football matchup and your championship. And that is why we are here. We're here to give you the starts and sits for Week 12. Can't believe it's Week 12. It's the prime playoff push. You have 2 weeks to get into the playoffs if you're not there already. Hopefully you still have a shot. We're here to help you. Ryan, what's going on?
Well, off the top, Steve, I replaced my fantasy football championship trophy with the turkey in the background because, Thanksgiving is this week. It's probably, as an adult, the best holiday of the year just because it's football all day. You get to stuff your face. Hopefully everyone stays safe this year. I know that there's a big corona concern, so be safe, see your family when you can, but aside from that, if anyone has any hints or tips on how to get my nat type open for when I cross platform play Call of Duty with you, that'd be helpful because I was lagging all over the place when we hopped into some Cold War this week. So hopefully if anybody's got some tips for me there, that would be big. But aside from that, there's no complaints. It's been a great week, and hopefully it's a short week for everybody else.
Yeah, drop that tip in the comments. We're definitely going to want to know that. And drop any comments, any questions you have, starts and sits. We have football, 3 games on Thursday. Best part about Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving football. Really excited for that. Like I said, we're here to help you win your Week 12 matchup and hopefully get you a lot closer to that fantasy football championship. So if you're not subscribed already, really appreciate it if you sub. We're over 1,000 now. We feel really good. We want to get more and more. So like the video. We appreciate the support. Let's go ahead and move on to the quarterbacks, the stardom quarterbacks, and I'm starting a guy who kind of had a dud game on Monday night against the Rams, and that's Tom Brady. I don't think we should overthink exactly what happened. He still had a decent game, tossed a couple of touchdowns, had those pretty brutal interceptions, but the Rams defense are honestly one of the best defenses in the league, sneaking up there. I think a lot of people are recognizing that, so I think you shouldn't use that game as recency bias to sit Tom Brady. I think they're going against KC. It's going to be an attacking game. Both teams are going to want to score a lot of points, and you got to keep up with the Chiefs. They're going to score a lot of points no matter what. So Tom Brady is going to have to do that. I think Mike Evans has been playing decent. Chris Godwin's been getting involved. Obviously, they still have Antonio Brown, Gronkowski. They're going to probably have a better run game than they did against the Rams, so it should open up a lot more things. So I like Tom Brady this week. I'm also starting Daniel Jones versus Cincinnati. You could hear it in my voice. Don't feel great about it, but hey, he's coming off his best performance of the year before the bye week against Philly. And he gets Cincinnati this week, a team that just lost Joe Burrow. Their spirits are probably down. There's going to be a lot of room to score some fantasy points for the Giants here. I like a lot of the Giants in this game. I think you can feel comfortable putting Daniel Jones in your lineup if your quarterback is on a bye week or if you're scrambling. Hopefully you have a better quarterback, but if not, I think he's a decent streamer this week. Who are you starting?
So the way my quarterback happiness has been it's not there. So I'm going to ride the wave of my least favorite quarterback in the NFL. Derek Carr. He looked great against Kansas City. That was one of the best games we've seen all year. It was really just a great showing out of both teams. I kind of wish Las Vegas pulled that out, but the Chiefs are the better team, so that's how the game should have gone. But Derek Carr looked great. They're getting everyone involved. Darren Waller's a freak. And it hurts to see Nelson Aguilar be a pretty solid wide receiver in the NFL. He's making plays. They're using him downfield. And I think they're kind of catching a stride here. And they've got Atlanta on the docket this week. So anytime you get a quarterback playing Atlanta, you feel good because there's going to be a lot of points put up. So Derek Carr, he's in the lineup. He had 3 rough games earlier in the year, but aside from that, he's been a pretty solid quarterback, so Derek Carr should be in your lineups. And I'm also starting Alex Smith. This is more of a feel-good meets solid matchup play where he's going to be on national TV. He's going to be up against the Dallas Cowboys. This is his comeback player of the year game for sure. I feel like this is where he shines. And he's got a great matchup. I think the Cowboys are poor at best defensively, but they put up points, and Andy Dalton has been running a solid offense for Dallas. So it should be slightly a shootout. Antonio Gibson's getting more active in the passing game, so they're not just relying on him on the ground. So hopefully Alex Smith gets to throw the ball 35 times, and if he does that, he's going to be a great start.
All right, let's move on to the sit-em quarterbacks in 4 weeks in a row. Going with Ryan Tannehill. He bit me in the butt last week, but I think this week, going against Indianapolis, which just a few weeks ago, I know it's tough. I keep doing Ryan Tannehill, but I just don't feel good about these matchups. It is. It's Tannehill against Indianapolis. Their defense is striding, man. They just made Aaron Rodgers not look that good in certain situations, and that is the heart and soul of their football team is their defense. And they play well against Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans, and I don't think it's going to be a great performance by Tannehill. He could certainly throw a couple touchdowns and get some rushing yards and whatnot, and maybe get you around 16 fantasy points. But at this point in the year, you really gotta hit on the quarterbacks, and I don't feel comfortable with Tannehill this week. 4 weeks in a row, don't feel comfortable. Kirk Cousins is my next sit-em quarterback against Carolina. Not much more to say besides Carolina's one of the worst rush defenses in the league, and Kirk Cousins is not going to throw the ball a lot. He might throw it a little bit and get Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen to have decent days if he finds them in the end zone, but this is going to be a huge Dalvin Cook game. I think it's like such chalk Dalvin Cook game. There's no way they're not just going to run the ball a bunch, and for me, the volume play for Kirk Cousins is not going to be there. I don't think he's going to have enough to get you enough fantasy points. Like I mentioned about Ryan Tannehill, get you over that 16, 17 point threshold. I don't think it's going to happen for Kirk this week.
So kind of just going off of guys that you don't think are good unless they have volume. I'm sitting Jared Goff. Like you touched on previously, their defense is unbelievable, and they're going up against San Francisco, who isn't great offensively right now. I think if they can get a couple short fields, Goff might have a touchdown or two, but they're not going to need to put up 35 points in order for Jared Goff to have a big game. Nick Mullins is still the quarterback of San Fran. Raheem Mostert's back. So on top of the Rams having a good defense, I think the 49ers game plan is going to have to be to run the ball and less time for Jared Goff to throw, less passes. I just don't see this setting up as a big Jared Goff game. I'm also sitting Lamar Jackson, which is tough. He was probably everyone's first quarterback off the board, but he's in Pittsburgh this week. It's his short week. He's down his two best running backs. They're going to force him to throw, and if you've noticed anything about Pittsburgh, if they let you throw the ball, they're going to get their hands on the ball. I really do think it's going to just be an absolute boat race, and I think Pittsburgh's going to blow them out of the water this week. There's too much going against Baltimore for them to put out a great showing, and I think Lamar Jackson's pressing too much, so he's not in my lineups this week.
Yeah, he just hasn't been good. People need to understand that if you have a better option, you need to seriously consider starting them over Lamar. Going against Pittsburgh, one of the best defenses in the league, no doubt. Yeah, I don't like that. Moving on to the running back position. Starting running back for me, Wayne Gallman versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati, putrid run defense. Like I said, I think their spirits are down. And Wayne Gallman, been finding the end zone game after game after game. Kind of an underrated fantasy running back. And I think it's a guy that you should feel very comfortable putting in your RB2 slot. I have him as an RB2 this week. Haven't finished my rankings yet, but that's probably where he'll end up. And I feel very confident with him. Like I said, I like this Giants offense this week. Cincinnati, they're not going to be good. They just lost their heart and soul, their football team and a rookie. Moving on to the opposite team, I'm gonna start Gio Bernard on the opposite side against the Giants. The Giants are not a good running defense, and they're going to have to run the ball. Whether it's the quarterback tossing the ball to the backfield, or like I said, him just running the ball when they actually get into the red zone and probably scoring the touchdown. Gio Bernard is probably going to be a volume play for me. I don't feel confident about the offense, which normally you wouldn't want to start running backs on a team that isn't going to win the game, or they're definitely big underdogs. But like I said, he's kind of the full work back for that. Like, he's going to be getting the pass out of the backfield. He's going to get in all the runs. They don't really have a good backup there. Joe Mixon's out again. So it's a volume play for me with Gio Bernard. Like, probably a pretty middle running back two, maybe lower at running back two. But I feel confident with Gio this week. Who's starting at running back?
I've got to go back to my newfound love of Kenyan Drake. It's definitely interesting to see how Arizona uses their running backs. the Chase Edmonds was going to run away with the backfield while Drake was hurt thing. That lasted a whole week. I think Kenyan Drake is still going to be the main ball carrier for that team, and they're in a matchup where it feels like it sets up as a Kenyan Drake game. They're in New England, so it's going to be a little cold. You got Gilmore on D Hop, and I think Arizona should pretty much handle this game. So it should be a game script that plays to all of Kenyan Drake's strengths. So I think he's going to see a ton of carries. I wouldn't be shocked if he leaves there with 18 to 20 carries. And the way he's been running, he's been pretty efficient. He got you 16 fantasy points last week, PPR. He's been better than people were making him out to be in week 5 or 6. I think he's top 5 or so in rushing yards this year. He's at least top 10 in rushing yards. So he's been decent, and I think the game sets up for him. And I'm also starting Kareem Hunt against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a get-it-right game for Kareem. He had an absolute dud last week against the Eagles. I think he had 14 carries for 12 yards. He salvaged it with a touchdown, but in order for Cleveland to kind of get things rolling, they need both backs to look good, and they don't really need to use a Nick Chubb 25 carry game. So I think Kareem Hunt sees a pretty decent amount of touches. I think they're going to try to work him back into having a successful week, and I really do like the optics for him this week. So Kareem Hunt, if you were kind of nervous about him after last week's performance, that you shouldn't be too nervous this week.
All right, moving on to the sit-em running backs, and I'm going to sit Melvin Gordon versus the Saints. Coming off his best performance of the season with a couple of touchdowns and pretty well efficient on the ground. I don't like him this week against New Orleans. Their defense is in stride right now. They're playing really good football, and I don't like this team. I think New Orleans is probably going to blow them out the water, even with Taysom Hill, and that doesn't bode well for either of the running backs on this team. So I'm going to sit Melvin Gordon. I'm also going to sit Gus Edwards versus Pittsburgh. I think this is going to be a pretty chalky DFS kind of plug in your lineup kind of guy because he's the only guy there. He's certainly going to get the volume, but Pittsburgh does not allow a lot of running backs to do much against them. And like I said, just because he's going to get a lot of volume and he's going to be the only guy there, you don't have to start him. We like Gus Edwards. We think he's a good running back, but I'm worried against that Pittsburgh defense. They can be beat through the air, but I don't know about on the ground. So I'm kind of worried about Gus Edwards, and for that reason, I'd sit him if I have other options. Who are you sitting?
I've got to sit Damien Harris. For the same reason I'm starting Kenyan Drake, I'm sitting Damien Harris. It feels like it's setting up to be a James White game. We're not sure how Rex Burkhead's doing currently. He had that pretty scary injury in Sunday's game. I'm not really sure what his availability is, but based on what I saw, I don't expect him to be in there. So I expect it to be a lot of James White where they're playing catch-up. Damien Harris is more of a closer type back. He's a bruiser. He runs hard. But that's not the game script that I think's at least going to happen. If New England gets out ahead early, maybe it's a Damien Harris game, but I really don't expect that. I think Arizona plays this game pretty tough, and I think Arizona wins this game. So it's not very good for Damien Harris and his 18 carries for 102 yards, no catches. It just doesn't set up that way. I'm also sitting Chris Carson, pretty much similar to how Kareem Hunt struggled last week, but the caveat is the Eagles are going to probably give up 400 passing yards. So I don't know if they're really going to need Chris Carson all that much, especially in a week where he's coming off injury. I think they can ease him in against a defense that's pretty stout against the run, terrible against the pass. So I know it'd be fun to get Chris Carson back in your lineups this week, but I wouldn't really expect him to have his 20-point game.
All right, on to the wide receivers. I'm starting Jalen Reagor versus Seattle. We know that Seattle can get beat through the air, and I'm not confident in the way that Carson Wentz is playing. But the downfall of the catches, not necessarily the targets, but Travis Fulgham, I really like that. I don't like it, but he's not catching balls, and Carson Wentz is partially the reason for that. But I think Jalen Reagor, and we mentioned it last week, is kind of submitting himself as the number one on this team. and I like this matchup against Seattle. I think Seattle's going to be up big, and they're going to have to come from behind, and that goes through the passing attack. So I like Jalen Reagor to be a volume play against Seattle. Definitely get it done for you. And I'm also starting DaVante Parker versus the New York Jets. Now there's this weird thing going on in Miami where Tua got pulled for Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they say that Tua is going to be the starter again, and I think he will be. And DaVante Parker's been his go-to guy, especially in the red zone. I think he can catch another touchdown this week, and with DaVante Parker, that's all you really need is about 5 to 6 catches, a touchdown, 50 yards, and that's a pretty good fantasy day. So if that's what you're looking for, I think you feel pretty confident putting DaVante Parker in your lineup going against the Jets. They are really bad. They're going to go 0-16. I would place a bet on that today. So go ahead. Who you starting?
I've got to start Diontae Johnson, right? You look at his overall production and you say there's a couple of weeks that are weird. But in weeks where he's gotten 75% of the snap share, he has gotten 10 plus targets in all but one of those games. And that one game was where he hurt his back. It was actually against the Ravens, who he's playing this week, and he pretty much was a decoy. It was a weird sequence where he got hurt after a catch for like 6 yards and just never saw the ball again. But when he's healthy, Big Ben is just feeding this guy. It's easy to get him the ball 5 yards off the line of scrimmage and let him just do whatever he wants to do with that ball. I really think he's come into his own, and he's been, when healthy, the Steelers' best wide receiver, and I don't think that changes this week. The thing is with defenses, I think defenses scheme as JuJu's the number one, where Diontae gets to see the second coverage, and that's been huge for him. I mean, JuJu got the benefit of that when AB was there, and I think Diontae is getting that this year. So I really do like Diontae, especially in PPR formats. I mean, he just eats targets. I'm also starting Michael Pittman, another guy that just is going to be eating targets in a pass-first offense. He's looked great. There's nothing you can really take away from his game recently that says he shouldn't be in your lineup. I think he's wide receiver 7 or something like that since returning from injury. He's been great. He's been honestly the rookie wide receiver that's least talked about, that should be talked about more. And I'm very excited to see what his final stretch and then fantasy playoff stretch is going to bring, because he was available on waiver wires up until like 2 weeks ago, and he might win some championships for teams.
Yeah, let's go and move on to the sit-em wide receivers. And I'm going to sit, and this is tough, it's a big name, but Amari Cooper versus Washington. I mentioned this last week, thinking that Joe Burrow would have a great game, and T. Higgins as well, against a pretty good Washington pass defense. I'm pretty sure they're number 1 in the league against wide receivers. And it was kind of hard for me to choose between Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb for this, but I kind of thought CeeDee Lamb would get a little more gadget work, and he's kind of going to be the guy that's left open. And could probably have a better game than Amari Cooper. Not confident going against Washington. Amari Cooper, he's seen the targets and whatnot. He's still involved in the offense, but are we confident in Andy Dalton and what they're doing? I'm not really. I think Washington, like I mentioned, underrated defense, and I think they're going to come to play on Thanksgiving. So I like Amari Cooper, and I don't like Amari Cooper. I don't like him. I'm also sitting T. Higgins versus the Giants, and this one's pretty much just the message to say that I think T. Higgins could be done this year as far as what he had going with Joe Burrow. We'll certainly wait and see to see if he can get anything going with Ryan Finley. I'm not confident. I'm not betting on that. And like I mentioned, this is probably the week I tell you I don't know if he's much of a starter for you anymore. We will wait and see. But the Giants are pretty good against wide receivers, and with Ryan Finley under center, I don't like T. Higgins this week.
I don't hate that, because it is so frustrating that Ryan Finley has a job. Like, I don't know what the Bengals saw last season after Finley played a couple games and said, you know what, we should bring him back and he should be our backup quarterback. Mm-hmm. I guess the thought was, if Burrow gets hurt, our season's pretty much done anyway. We might as well lose the rest of the games. I guess that's what they were thinking. But that guy, there's 1,000 quarterbacks that are sitting on their couch on Sundays that are just as good as that guy. But that's neither here nor there. I'm sitting JuJu this week. He hasn't gone over 100 yards this year, which no one really expected. He's got a tough matchup. Like I said, I feel like defenses scheme to have him be the wide receiver 1 most weeks. I think he had 67 yards against Baltimore the last time they matched up, but once again, that was with Diontae Johnson being a little bit on the mend. Dude, I don't know what's up with JuJu. I think we might have overrated him as a rookie with AB, but it's tough to get him in your lineup. I know he was probably a 4th, 5th, 6th round pick for you. At this point, I don't remember where the ADP was, but you picked him high. You picked him to start, and he's just not coming up when you really need him. So I'm sitting him. I'm also sitting Jerry Jeudy. He's going to see Marshawn Lattimore. I think Lattimore was a game time decision last week, and he should be active this week. That's a tough draw for a rookie wide receiver, and I've really liked what Judy's done so far this year, but it's going to be tough to play him in a spot where New Orleans is pretty good on the outside, and I really think that the Broncos found their footing with the run game, and Drew Lock shouldn't be throwing 40 times. So I expect him to run the ball, even though it's tough against New Orleans, and Judy's going to be a tough start. So
yeah, Drew Lock has not looked good.
No, I just like he's like a fun guy, right? Like I personally would probably be good friends with Drew Lock. I do also like listening to Jeezy, but I don't know if he's quarterback one material. So when the Broncos and the Colts have a bidding war for Carson Wentz in the offseason, Drew Lock will be QB2.
All right, moving on to the tight ends. Well, we'll finish you off here with these. Yeah. I'm going to start Evan Engram versus Cincinnati. Yep. Man, I'm all in this New York-Cincinnati game. But I like Evan Engram. It's gonna be a bad game. That's the thing. Yeah. It's not going to be a game you're probably going to want to watch. But I think it's going to bode well for those New York Giants. Evan Ingram's been a lot more involved in the offense, whether it's running the ball, whether it's getting a lot of targets from Daniel Jones. He's certainly hitting his stride. So I feel pretty confident against Cincinnati. Mentioned for like the 6th time in this video that their heart and soul is gone, and their spirits are dead. I think they're gonna get their butt kicked by a 3-17.
Yeah.
Moving on to my next start tight end, that's Hunter Henry versus Buffalo. Similar reason, this guy's finally getting involved, finally getting a rapport with Justin Herbert. Got you around 10 fantasy points 2 weeks in a row. Very good week this past week. Going against Buffalo, not the easiest defense, but certainly not a defense that you would sit a guy for, especially in the tight end market where we are, where a top 5 tight end scores 7 points. So I like Hunter Henry this week as a volume play, and I think he could possibly find the end zone again. So if you got him, start him. Who you start?
Yeah, so we've been over this before where you pretty much need a touchdown to be a tight end one. And that's what Dallas Goedert brought last week. He was the only shining spot, I guess, offensively for the Philadelphia Eagles. He got a touchdown with like 3 seconds left, which was fun and all. But he really is someone they need to be a catalyst for that offense. They need to stop doing the most on offense. So I think keeping Goedert active, making sure he's kind of the focal point, is key, and I really think he's going to finish as a top 5 tight end going forward for the rest of the year. And I'm starting Rob Gronkowski. Tom Brady loves Gronk in big games, and this is the biggest game they've had all year. I think he finds the end zone somehow. I think the Chiefs are going to have to stop Mike Evans from finding the end zone, who's been pretty solid recently. So I think Gronk is going to sneak his way into a touchdown. I'm not sure if it's going to be like one of those weird plotting, like 20-yard, like runs that Gronk has where you don't think he's going to get to the end zone or he's just going to catch a fade. But I do think he finds the end zone this week. So Gronk, completely fine play. Don't get stuck with like 2.8 in your lineup in Logan Thomas. So.
All right, sit him tight ends. I'm sitting Jonnu Smith versus Indianapolis. Had a decent week last week because he found the end zone, but the week before against Indianapolis was not great. And like I mentioned, Ryan Tannehill on my bench going against Indianapolis again. I don't like the matchup, so I'm sitting him. And I'm also sitting Jared Cook. Week 1 with Taysom Hill was not pretty for Jared Cook. 1 target, 1 catch, 6 yards. That's not what you want. Going against Denver, who can defend against the tight end position. I don't like it. With Taysom Hill back there, they're going to do their Taysom Hill offense, and I don't know if Jared Cook's a part of it. So I don't feel confident. Put him on the bench. Who are you sitting at tight end?
I got to sit Jimmy Graham. I know it's a revenge game against Green Bay, but what are you going to do? That offense is putrid. I think they kind of run the ball more. David Montgomery should be back against a terrible terrible run defense in Green Bay. Sorry, Steve. And
They're
I'm
awful.
also sitting Hayden Hurst again this week. He gave you a goose egg. If you go back to Hayden Hurst this week after him giving you 0, that's just the definition of insanity. So just don't play Hayden Hurst. I've been saying it since week 1.
All right, well, there you have it. Your starts and sits at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Thank you for watching the video. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and drop a comment of all your start sit questions. We got you. We're going to see you guys next week, your last week of the regular season, until we get to those fantasy football playoffs, which we will be here helping you with until you win your championship. No doubt. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and if you're returning. Thanks for coming by. We'll see you next week.